In the early hours of November 13, 2022, a quiet college town in Idaho woke up to something it had never experienced before. For University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernadle, and Ethan Chapin were found brutally stabbed inside an off-campus home near campus. There were no signs of forced entry, no immediate suspect, and for hours, no clear explanation. What made the crime especially unsettling was its silence. No neighbors reported screams. No witnesses came forward. The victims were attacked while most of the town slept. By the time police arrived, the killer was already gone, leaving behind a scene that investigators would later describe as one of the most complex they had ever handled. For weeks, the case gripped the nation. Parents locked doors. Students fled campus. Online speculation exploded, and a single question dominated every conversation. How could someone do this and disappear so completely? Then, more than 6 weeks later, police made an arrest. The suspect was Bryan Kohberger, a criminology PhD student studying criminal behavior just miles away. He wasn't a known associate of the victims. He had no public history of violence. Yet prosecutors would later allege that evidence quietly placed him at the center of the crime. The arrest shocked the public, but it didn't end the mystery. In many ways, it deepened it. According to court documents, investigators relied on a combination of DNA evidence, cell phone data, and surveillance footage to build their case. A knife sheath found at the scene allegedly contained DNA that matched Kohberger. Cell phone records suggested his phone had traveled near the victim's home multiple times before the murders. Cameras reportedly captured a white sedan resembling his vehicle circling the area that night. But the defense disputes much of this. They argue the evidence is circumstantial. That phone data can be misleading. That surveillance footage does not clearly identify the driver. And that critical questions remain unanswered, including motive. Now, as the case moves toward trial, the focus is no longer just on who was arrested, but on what the evidence truly shows, and whether it can withstand scrutiny in court. This is not a story about internet theories or speculation. It is about timelines, forensic details, and legal standards. It is about how modern investigations work and where they can fail. Because when a case carries this much weight, one thing matters above all else: proof. And in the Bryan Kohberger trial, every detail will be tested. To understand why this case remains so contested, investigators began with one essential task: rebuilding the final hours inside the house on King Road. According to police, the evening of November 12, 2022, appeared ordinary. The 4 students spent the night separately, attending social gatherings, visiting bars, and spending time with friends. By early morning, all 4 were back inside the home. Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan returned around 1:56 a.m. after a food truck stop that was captured on live video. Xana Kernadle and Ethan Chapin were believed to have arrived slightly earlier, returning from a fraternity event. By approximately 2 a.m., the house went quiet. Investigators believe the attacks occurred sometime between 4 o'clock and 4:25 a.m. That narrow window is critical. It is based on phone records, nearby surveillance footage, and the timing of a food delivery to the house earlier that night. One surviving roommate later told police she heard noises upstairs, sounds she initially thought were people playing with a dog. At one point, she reported hearing crying, followed by a male voice saying something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She then saw a masked man dressed in black walk past her and exit the house through a sliding door. He was gone within minutes. At 4:17 a.m., a nearby security camera recorded audio consistent with whimpering and a loud thud. Shortly afterward, cameras in the area captured a white sedan making multiple passes near the home before speeding away. Investigators later connected that vehicle to Bryan Kohberger. Phone data presented by prosecutors suggests Kohberger's phone was turned off or inactive during the window of the murders, a point they argue indicates deliberate action. The defense counters that phone data gaps are common and do not prove intent. What makes the timeline so unsettling is its efficiency. Prosecutors believe the entire attack may have taken less than 15 minutes. No forced entry, no immediate emergency call, no interruption. At 11:58 a.m., Nearly 8 hours later, a 911 call was placed from the house reporting an unconscious person. When officers arrived, they found all 4 victims deceased. The timeline leaves jurors with difficult questions. How did the killer move through the house so quickly? Why were some occupants unharmed? And most importantly, does the timing of events truly place the suspect at the scene? Because in this case, minutes matter, and every second of that timeline will be argued in court. For weeks after the murders, investigators had no public suspect, no arrest, no clear motive. Then, quietly, one piece of evidence began to shift the entire direction of the case. A knife sheath. According to court documents, police discovered a tan leather knife sheath lying on the bed beside 2 of the victims. It appeared out of place, not belonging to anyone who lived in the house. More importantly, it may have been left behind by the killer. On the snap of that sheath, forensic analysts found a single source of male DNA. That detail would become central to the prosecution's case. Investigators entered the DNA profile into law enforcement databases, but it did not produce an immediate match. Instead, authorities turned to genetic genealogy, a technique that uses public DNA databases to identify possible relatives. Through that process, investigators narrowed the profile to a family line connected to Bryan Kohberger. To confirm the lead, police later collected DNA from trash outside Kohberger's family home in Pennsylvania. According to prosecutors, the DNA recovered from that trash matched the sheath DNA with an extremely high level of statistical certainty. For investigators, this was the moment the case crystallized. But for the defense, it became the point of greatest contention. Kohberger's attorneys argue that the presence of DNA on a movable object does not prove when or how it was deposited. They suggest secondary transfer, the idea that DNA can be transferred indirectly through contact with other objects or people. They also question why no blood or DNA from the victims was found in Kohberger's car, apartment, or office. Prosecutors respond that the sheath is not just any object. It was found at the crime scene, next to the victims, and matched the type of weapon believed to have been used in the attacks. They argue that its placement strongly suggests it was brought into the house during the crime. Still, questions remain. Why was the sheath left behind? Was it a mistake? Did the killer not realize it was missing? Or was it dropped during a struggle? These unanswered details give the defense room to challenge assumptions, and they know jurors will be listening closely. DNA is powerful, but it is not magic. It must be interpreted within context, timelines, and human behavior. That is why this single piece of evidence carries such weight and such risk. In court, experts will explain statistics, probabilities, and forensic processes. Jurors will be asked to decide not just whether the DNA matches, but whether it places Bryan Kohberger inside that house at the moment the murders occurred. Because in this case, one snap on a knife sheath may decide everything. If DNA is the backbone of the prosecution's case, then digital evidence is the nervous system, constantly transmitting signals that investigators say trace Bryan Kohberger's movements before and after the murders. According to court filings, Kohberger's cell phone data shows a pattern. In the months leading up to November 13th, his phone allegedly connected to cell towers near the King Road house on at least a dozen occasions, often late at night or in the early morning hours. Prosecutors argue this suggests familiarity with the area, possibly even surveillance. The night of the murders, that pattern abruptly changes. At approximately 2:47 a.m., Kohberger's phone stops reporting to the network. For nearly 2 hours, including the estimated time of the killings, the phone is either turned off, placed in airplane mode, or otherwise inactive. Then, just after 4:48 a.m., the phone reconnects to a tower south of Moscow. Prosecutors say this gap is no coincidence. Surveillance footage strengthens that claim. Cameras captured a white Hyundai Elantra, matching Kohberger's vehicle, making multiple passes near the victim's house between 3:29 a.m. and 4:04 a.m. One camera shows the car attempting to park, then driving away, then returning again. At 4:20 a.m., a vehicle believed to be the same Elantra is seen speeding away from the area. Later that morning, additional cameras recorded the car traveling back toward Pullman, Washington, but not by the most direct route. Investigators say the path taken suggests an attempt to avoid main roads and cameras. The defense, however, disputes nearly every assumption. They argue that cell phone tower data cannot precisely pinpoint a person's location. Coverage areas overlap. Signals bounce. A phone connecting to a tower near Moscow does not necessarily mean Kohberger was in the King Road neighborhood, or even in the city itself. As for the vehicle, defense attorneys note that thousands of white Elantras exist across the region. Early police descriptions even listed the wrong model year, raising questions about identification accuracy. But prosecutors maintain that when DNA, video footage, and phone data are viewed together, they tell a consistent story, one of presence, timing, and opportunity. This chapter of the case is about inference. Jurors will be asked to decide whether the digital trail represents coincidence or calculation. Because if the phone went dark on purpose, and if that car was exactly where investigators believe it was, then the digital silence becomes louder than any confession. And the question shifts from what happened to why. As the trial approaches, the Bryan Kohberger case is no longer just about evidence, it is about interpretation. Two sides will walk into court with the same facts, but radically different stories. Prosecutors will argue their case is built on convergence. Not one piece of evidence, but many. DNA on a knife sheath, cell phone data that goes dark at a critical moment, surveillance footage of a car matching Kohberger's vehicle, and a timeline that places him near the house when the murders occurred. Individually, they may be debated. Together, prosecutors say, they form a picture that is difficult to ignore. The defense strategy is equally calculated. Kohberger's attorneys are expected to attack assumptions, not evidence itself. They will emphasize what is missing. No murder weapon recovered, no blood or victim DNA found in Kohberger's car, home, or office, and no eyewitness who can identify him as the masked intruder. They will remind jurors that DNA on an object does not equal guilt, and that digital data can be misleading. Most importantly, they will lean into reasonable doubt. Why were two roommates left alive? Why was the sheath the only object connecting Kohberger to the scene? Why did investigators initially misidentify the model year of the suspect vehicle? And why did it take weeks before Kohberger became a suspect? These questions are not side notes. They are the foundation of the defense. The judge has already ruled on several high-stakes motions, including changes of venue and limitations on what evidence the jury will hear. Each ruling shapes how much the public and the jurors will ultimately know. And then there is Kohberger himself. He has maintained his innocence. He waived his right to a speedy trial. And in a move that stunned many observers, he declined to enter a plea at his arraignment, forcing the court to enter a not guilty plea on his behalf. If convicted, Kohberger could face life in prison without parole or worse. This trial will test the limits of forensic science, digital surveillance, and the presumption of innocence in the modern age. It will ask whether technology brings us closer to the truth, or whether it creates new ways to misunderstand it. And when the verdict finally comes, it won't just decide the fate of one man. It will define how justice is measured in a world where every movement leaves a trace, and silence can be its own kind of evidence.